Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 17th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of School Administrative District number 52. We'll call the meeting to order and start with a pledge of allegiance. Peter.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business tonight is to act on the minutes from the 16th regular meeting. Are there any comments, feedback on the minutes? Seeing none, they will be approved by unanimous consent. I am going to forego the report of the board chair for tonight, and we are going to jump right into public comment. And I don't have the preamble printed, so just give me 1 minute here. I'm a little unorganized at the moment. Yeah, well, before I read, is there going to be anyone who would like to speak tonight? Okay, hold on 1 moment.
Sorry.
No, it's no problem at all. No problem at all.
She probably won't behave either, so
Yeah.
you definitely need to read the rules for her.
What did you say?
I said he needs to read the rules for you.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
please do.
Yeah.
I've only done this a couple times now.
All right, so just want to remind everyone our board meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying out the official business of our schools. It is important to note that meetings of the board are open to the public, however, they are not public forums. At each full meeting of the board, time is allocated to provide opportunities for citizens and employees to express opinions and concerns related to the matters under consideration by the board. These comments shall be within the guidelines set forth in Policy BEDH, Public Participation at Board Meetings. Copies of the policy are available on the district website, and I'd just like to highlight the following. The chair is responsible for recognizing all speakers. We ask that speakers identify themselves by sharing their name and town of residence. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to express their views. Speakers should direct all comments to the board, specifically the board chair. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters, but it is not intended to be a conversation or a debate of issues. We know that school-related issues can be emotional, but we ask that civility is maintained. We will not permit profanity, gossip, defamatory comments, shouting at one another, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. The board is faced with many important issues, and for the sake of efficiency, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments. The board will also not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. We certainly care about these concerns, but they are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled through our policy KE, the complaint policy. To reiterate, this is just a highlight of key points. Please refer to policy BEDH for a complete description of our public participation policy. With that, do we have anyone who would like to speak? Yes, go right ahead.
My name is Catherine Larry. I'm a parent living over in Leeds. I have a Trick middle schooler, and I also have, obviously, an elementary school student at LCS. And my reason for talking to you folks tonight is I have concerns with the buses that have been happening as of this past week. It's been very rough and very challenging. I'm very disappointed that we didn't get notification ahead of time that there was going to be such crazy, strange adaptations to the route. The one example that I can go with was the first situation that we had. Fortunately, I had a neighbor who noticed the bus go by, but it went by, I think, 45 minutes earlier than our normal bus time. So my daughter clearly wasn't ready for the bus. And fortunately, my husband works at home, so he was able to take my daughter and my neighbor's daughter because she had to vacate before the kids could get to school. So just since that point, it has been continuously like long ends. There's like hour-long bus rides in the morning, hour bus rides on the ride home. Very unclear with what's happening on the app. I was informed by one of the bus drivers that, not our bus driver, but another one, that part of the reason why the app kept freezing was because the bus driver had to keep stopping. Behaviors on the bus were absolutely wretched and awful. And the reason I bring that part up is honestly, I mean, obviously I'm concerned about lack of bus drivers. I know there are some amazing bus drivers out there and doing a lot of pickup for the kids that need it, but at the same time, words are being really loud. The behavior thing, though, is the next concern that I really have. In my day, if you were a jerk on the bus, you were asked to be brought home by your parents brought you to or from school. There was no excuses. Behaviors were not tolerated, where the kids were mean to each other, nasty to each other, keeping each other locked in seats so they can't get out. Profanities, things like that need to be recognized and addressed, and I'm not sure the proper methods that need to happen. But my daughter doesn't need that, and all these other kids don't need that. I would certainly, if it were my child and there was a bus issue, I would make sure to handle it. So I'm not sure what else we need to do, but some notification on like what's happening with the buses would be awesome, and what we can expect to see, because if I need to change my work schedule so she doesn't have to sit an hour plus on the morning, an hour plus at night, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Anyone else? Oh, yes, Mr. Shasta.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do I have to direct it to you to send to her, or can I just?
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with any reports of bullying on the bus? Sustained sort of behavior issues that are aggressive?
Yes. Yes, and I know they have been seen on the bus cameras, and I know that we are told that things are being done, but updates, I mean, I know it's tough because they can't tell us what's happening for the specific situation, specific children, but it doesn't feel like there's any improvements, and that spills over into the classrooms.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes.
Crystal Nicholas from Green. In January, the Free Press published a piece called "The Truth About Banned Books." There are claims that progressive books are being censored in public schools, but research shows the opposite. The author of this article, James Fishback, talked to students, parents, school board members about the information made available to students. Several students complained, writes Fishback, quote, that their school libraries have become one-sided, offering only books in line with progressive orthodoxy. The author surveyed 35 of the largest public school districts in 8 red states and 6 blue states, representing over 4,600 individual schools. The results are not so much a problem of banned books as viewpoint discrimination. Children are simply not exposed to content that expresses viewpoints counter to the mainstream liberal agenda. To say that Fishback found that left-leaning material predominates across all collections is a gross understatement. Of the 35 schools screened, roughly 40 to 80% carry progressive ideological material, such as How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi, Felix Ever After, a book on trans theory, or Dreams of My Father by Barack Obama. Conservative viewpoints, such as Abigail Schreier's Irreversible Damage, that visits detransitioners exposing the crushing physical consequences and mental anguish of transitioned youth. This is nowhere, nor is any volume that offers any testimony or perspective from detransitioners. There's not a single volume from political thinkers like Vivek Ramaswamy or Tim Scott, nor is Ron DeSantis' The Courage to Be Free anywhere for kids to select. While I encourage you to read the article for yourselves for greater depth, everyone would want to know, how does our school compare? Of the 17 progressive authors listed in the article, 10 are represented in our high school library by 1 or more volumes. Of the dozen conservative authors, absolutely none are represented. Kids can read about how to be anti-racist or Robert Shetterly's idea of Americans who tell the truth, but students will never be exposed to prominent black authors like Ayan Percy Ali, whose biography Infidel was enjoyed by my 9-year-old, or any material by Dr. Ben Carson, or Candace Owens' biography Blackout. There is nothing by popular life commentator Scott Adams, the wildly successful creator of Dilbert. There is nothing about Megyn Kelly's experiences at a top law firm, nothing by notable historian Victor Davis Hanson, and of course nothing at all by Donald J. Trump. We talk about a problem with banned books, and we have one indeed. Genderqueer is supposedly the most banned book in the country, frequently challenged and removed, yet it is still found in 25% of the largest public school libraries. Taxpayer resources should be used to provide library materials that support all children, not just a select few.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Any child, please. Good afternoon, everybody. So, public records and proceedings in the main statutes, 403B, if the body allows or is required to provide an opportunity for public input, which this is right here, then an effective means of communication between the members of the body and the public must be provided. So I understand, you know, we're not getting into discussion, stuff like that. I'm not trying to do that. But I do have questions I'd love answers to, you know. I'd love to know why the will of the people is being circumvented. We have so many people that sign a petition. More people, I mean, we could go out and get another 500 or 1,000 if that's what we had to do. Should we have to do that? You know, we're all busy. You know, so why is it when we sit in the policy meeting and we do the, you know, the board, and we have all this stuff, we say, all right, we're going to get stakeholders involved, we're going to come back to all this stuff. Instead of coming back to it and getting stakeholders involved, which I asked for the breakdown, to break it down myself so I could have followed along better in the next one. We just have a policy just pop up, you know, already pre-written, probably pre-read. You know, it pops up, it doesn't, nobody asks me, nobody cares about what I have to say, or the 500 and something people, you know, or the other board members, or anybody. You know, we're just gonna agree, we're just gonna try to send this policy through when everybody wants a policy that just has stricter guidance on things that are adult material, sexually explicit. We have 4 or 5 other policies, you can't do it. You know, I'd be wondering if I could have the gender queer photos on my shirt, if I could wear them right here in front of you. You know, would that be allowed? It's in the book, it's in the school. You know, could I do it? You know, kids can't look it up on the computer. Christine Duplass, when we bought the books, she had to prove she was 18 to sign to get the books. 18. Most of the people in the school is not 18 years old. You know, if adults want to indulge in sexually explicit stuff, they have more than the right to do it in the First Amendment. Why? So if you're against putting that in, that means you're for having sexually explicit content in the schools. Nobody is arguing that there's not sexually explicit content in the schools. And the book Gender Queer is way more than just a few pages. You know, way more than a few pages. You know, that's it. So, you know, can I get the answer to that? Can I get to where this is so good for kids, you know, the evidence, the whatever you're going by. Can I get that information to look it up myself? Because everything in history says that sexually explicit stuff is not good for minors. You know, it's just not good for them.
You reached your time, Jimmy. Thank you.
Reached my time?
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Okay. Moving on to communications. I do not have any communications. Carrie?
Yep. So, resignations to report. Ashley Gowrie is elementary teacher at Leeds, the end of the school year. Christina Cloutier, school nurse at Leeds at the end of the school year. Kim Russell, special education teacher, resource teacher at Turner Primary School at the end of the school year. Administrative Secretary Katrina Mancine at TES at the end of the school year. And Paul Henry bus driver effective at the end of this week. That's what I got.
Okay. Adjustments to the agenda. I have one here. Many of you got this letter kind of put into your packet or near your packet. We're going to add consideration of this letter in as item 10.11, but we're going to do it just before our series of executive sessions. So this 10.11 will get inserted right after 10.2, consideration of this letter. There are a couple red lines that you might see from kind of the original agenda that went out, but it's effectively just a couple of small positions that were added into the consent agenda that Carrie will go over in her report. Any questions about the agenda? So we'll move right into committee reports. First one being finance. Kristen.
Yeah, we did not meet this evening. Our next meeting is May 16th, but under the consent agenda is 8.2, which is consideration and approval of Finance Committee recommendation for wood chip bids. Nothing changed on that?
No, we're still sticking with Thomas Enterprises at $75 a ton.
Perfect. That's it.
I just want to double check. You said, what was the bid we were considering?
$75 a ton by Thomas Enterprise. They were the lowest bid, and they also came highly recommended by Dave Coburn, who's worked with them previously, and other school districts as well.
Gotcha. So that was unanimous from the finance committee. Good. Wonderful.
And then we have 10.2, which is the electricity rates.
I have new rates to discuss tonight when we get there.
Okay, very good. All right, so next is the Plant Transportation and Building Subcommittee. Peter.
We met this evening. Basically, we met solely to discuss a group of projects that we can hopefully move forward with over the course of the next year or so. These will be taken out as a loan along with a bunch of rebates to help pay for the loans. So these include LED lighting throughout the district and upgrades to the most modern form of LED lighting. Air handling systems throughout Green, the whole school of Green at this point. The new air handling systems would bring in a dehumidification factor, which would also add as a cooler to also bring down the overall temperature of the whole Green school, just not the upstairs anymore. We're now looking at doing the whole school. Replacing the boiler room in Green with all new equipment, much more energy efficient, as well as a safety concern, especially with the outdoor tanks. A new surprise to us this evening, which shouldn't be a surprise, is we have roof problems in the district. That is, Levitt Area High School came back with some pretty immediate roof repair issues. So that got lumped into this first round of, I hate to say it, almost emergency repairs that we're starting to work on. That is just a repair for about $250,000. So we've added that to this procedure. This is also adding some, again, the same idea of the air handlers with cooling, but we're adding them, not just upgrading them, to Leeds, because Leeds is another one of our schools that have a high temperature issue. In addition to the 3 systems, which would do about 3/4 of the school, I guess, give or take, we'll be adding 3-phase power to the school, which is a significant thing, significant cost. The overall cost of this would be a little over $5 million, and we'll be coming forward sometime in the middle of May at one of those meetings to actually get a board vote on it. But we've agreed to at least look into it.
Yeah, if it works out as planned, we're going to have a 15th morning meeting with PTB.
I was waiting for you to ask me when our next meeting is.
When is our next meeting?
Oh, okay. We strongly encourage you to come to our next PTB meeting. It'll be at 7 a.m. on the 15th at Central Office.
Yes.
It is a lot of fun.
And hopefully we have a real recommendation out of that to bring to you for the next meeting.
We'll actually have final numbers. Like I said, the roof just arrived in the past couple days. That was a major issue. Don't think that's our only roof problem, folks. We've heard rumors of a town of Leeds again.
Thank you, Peter. Curriculum and policy, Jamie.
Yeah, we did not meet tonight either. And our next meeting on the agenda, it says, is May 16th at 5:30, but due to just how extensive the work is on that, we're going to move that meeting up to 5. So, May 16th, 5 p.m. And there's nothing curriculum or policy-wise on the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. And Sydney's here. So a student representative report.
Yeah, so over the past few weeks before break and then this week, members of Student Council and National Honor Society have been working on a bunch of projects for Teacher Appreciation Month.
Great.
And you are getting close to graduation day.
Yes.
So
Almost a month left.
stuff has started happening around that. That's awesome.
That's great. Thank you, Sydney. We don't have any administrator reports tonight. We do have Teresa back. Welcome back. How are you, Teresa? Very good.
Thank you.
But I don't see you're on here for a report, so we'll give you a pass.
I was gonna let her incorporate into mine because we missed that.
Okay.
Unless you've got something. If you're ready to pass, that's
I
fine.
am ready.
You're ready. All right.
She's
No,
coming
let's,
back.
let's,
She's ready to roll.
let's do it.
it.
Yeah, let's do it.
7.5.5.
Assistant Superintendent's report, Teresa.
All right.
So the main spring assessment window opened this past Monday, and it runs through May 31st. The Maine Department of Education has partnered with NWEA, which is a test that's been around in our district for a long time, to provide students in grades 3 through 8 and the second year of high school, so sophomores, an assessment in math and reading, which is delivered through a platform called Acacia. It's a little confusing, but it works. And then the science assessment is administered to students in grades 3, 8, and the third year of high school, or juniors, and that assessment window is May 13th through the 24th. So all of this assessment will be complete by the end of May. Each school sets their own assessment schedule, so those are not dictated by the state, just the window. And then additionally, students in 1st, 2nd, and 7th grade are taking the spring NWEAs in reading and math. And that's some of the data that you see presented to you from time to time. And tomorrow, the ESEA preliminary FY25 allocations are publicly available, so we'll find out what our district receives. Each year, our funding can vary. Last year, we received $520,447.54, which helps fund our Title I staff and supplies at Tripp, Green, and Leeds, professional development for staff across the district, summer stipend days, supplies for student engagement, and some technology projects.
And next year, the instructional coach at Leeds.
And next year, the instructional coach at Leeds.
Very good. Thank you. Hopefully you're doing well. Question? Yeah. Go ahead.
When it comes to the assessment testing, every district can do it however it works. You said it's not a mandate by the state on how they time frame or how they, I guess, what did you just,
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say it correctly if that's what I said. Each school. So like Tripp does not have to follow the same schedule as Levitt and Turner Elementary School. They can decide when they want to start their testing for students within that window of April 22nd to May 31st.
So my question would line, if it's specifically amongst the elementary schools, they can take them at different days?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be better, especially for a comparison factor, to have them all taken on the same days? Something similar, to have some, we talk about having some uniformity in the district, and this might be, again, one of those areas to have a little bit more uniformity amongst the 3 schools.
I can't speak to that specifically. I don't know that there's data. I don't know that other school districts do it that way. The leverage is you have 6 weeks to administer the assessment, so everybody's taking within that period. I can speak from my experience as a principal at Turner Primary School. First graders, we tend to test later in the testing window because that gives them more instructional time.
And I think that's,
And
I'm
so
not, but I guess what I'm thinking is one of the things that I've always had a little bit of an issue with is regarding what it is I think that all 3 schools should be handled fairly similarly. Taught, not have a lot of differences between the 3 schools. And one of those areas is potentially testing. Okay, you have this week or 10 days or whatever it is to do the testing and how the testing is done. I know in other districts, some schools choose to work it out, and maybe this isn't the assessment that to do it, like, all right, we're only going to test half days or something like this, and gives more time for the students and not so stressed, so forth and so on, whether schools in the same district will do it, get it over with, and it's hard for comparisons. And I
guess I really can't speak to that just because I'm not in that principal role. The 4 principals work together, and so they may very well have worked out a coordinated schedule. It's not something that's required at the state level.
I guess what I'm saying is you two specifically can direct, can come into that role to make sure there is uniformity amongst the district. To me, that's one of your primary roles, is to make sure that the 3 different schools give each, when we're comparing 6th graders at Leeds to 6th graders at Turner, there shouldn't be a really hot day at one school and 4 days later it's a lot cooler day, because we've just talked about that.
Right, but the schools, because there's a window, they can make those changes. Like if they come to a day and it's too hot, they have time within that, I don't know, how many weeks is that, 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks for science.
2 weeks, so they have that flexibility primarily for that, especially if something, I don't know, if something happens and school starts late or something like that, they've got that flexibility. But I think it's a balance of, like, how much uniformity versus allowing the professionals in each building to sort of know their kids and know what makes sense for them. They may know that this particular group of kids is going to be better off if they do it in the morning versus the afternoon, because they're trying to maximize, like, the kids do their best work, right? So each building is doing that. They want to have the best possible results. So what are the right conditions? So, I mean, we could order them, but I'm not sure what the benefit would be. Like, we'd have to weigh out uniformity with allowing the professionals to make those judgments.
What I hear you saying, Peter, is that you would like to see consistency among across the schools for better comparison. And what I'm hearing you say, Carrie, is that the schools are largely all trying to do the best they possibly can, and that may mean that they do it slightly on different days to get their best results.
But we can get the schedules. Like, we don't know how off they are, so we'll at least get the schedules and look at them and share that with you guys.
Because, you know, that's just one of my numerous areas of concern when it comes to, you know, all three towns should be treated and run the same. And I'm not saying that it's not, the professionals aren't, you know, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying uniformity is all I was looking for.
Yeah.
Are you ready for your report, Carrie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just writing down this note so
Sure.
I don't forget it. Okay, so I've got a couple things to talk about. I'll start with transportation, obviously. So we had a failure in communication in Leeds. No question about that. We knew that runs were being reevaluated and redistributed. I'm not sure that I had a good sense of what that timeline was. So I need to make sure that I'm asking the right questions at the right time to make sure we understand that. But communication is something that I have worked really hard in the district to make sure that it's happening on a regular basis. So for a failure like that to happen is really bothersome. So I don't have more to say than that. It was not okay. It was not okay in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. We know that it continues to be difficult and are working on strategies to solve that. None of these are things that we're going to be able to solve overnight, but I understand that and know that. And it's something Gabby and I spent a lot of time talking with Jim and problem solving, Jim working with his staff to problem solve. So yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. So.
If I can just add, I mean, even as the chair of the board, I'm not immune. I sat at the end of my driveway and a bus never came on Monday. So it happens to everyone in Leeds. It was a really tough 2 days.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
With if I understand correctly from your communications report, there's a bus driver who's leaving at the end of the week. Is that going to create a further impact? Is that person being replaced?
So the consolidation happened in anticipation of that person leaving. So Pam Miller, who is one of the office persons who's in charge of, she's a transportation specialist, former bus driver. She will be, she had been driving for a lot, even though she's got this job as transportation specialist. We had gotten ourselves to a good place where she could then go back to her job as transportation specialist, which is maintaining the fleet, bus routes, those kinds of things. When Paul is done at the end of this week, she will be moving into that run. So she'll still try to do some of the office work that she does, but that's what she'll be doing. So the consolidation was in anticipation of that. So there won't be an additional change after Friday. Yep.
I just had a question. You know, we've had obviously a hard time retaining and attracting bus drivers, and with one retiring kind of all of a sudden, is the behavior of the kids a recurring issue from the bus drivers? Like, are they reporting that it is problematic?
Yep, and it's no different than what our teachers are facing. Like, that's a conversation we've been having for a while. So we have struggled to hire bus aides. The budget includes a salary increase for those positions, van drivers as well, though we discovered, you know, within a month of starting the budget process that we were paying under by almost $2 an hour compared to neighboring districts, so the budget includes increases there. We do have a number of ed techs who work additional, you know, and do that transportation piece. We can't we're not able to recruit them all to do that.
Yeah.
But we do have that, and so I think some of that is a salary issue. Some of it is, just establishing a culture within the department that people want to be a part of, and that's been ongoing work for us.
So that was kind of my next thing was, at the golf course, we have a bunch of old timers like to mow grass. And I have a list a mile long of old guys that want to mow grass for minimum wage because they got nothing else to do. And they don't do it for the money. They're happy to make minimum wage. They are looking for something to do. So I wonder if, you've talked about the salaries and, being way below is not obviously good, but I wonder if the behavior is more of a problem than maybe we're giving it credit for.
I give it lots of credit.
It's just not, and I don't know what tools the bus drivers have.
Yep.
I'm obviously new here.
So there's been
she had spoke about, kids getting asked off the bus route.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's still a thing or if that's a hard process to incorporate or.
It is.
Like I said, I find that maybe there's, and obviously it's not a forgotten about issue, but
no,
it
it
may
is
be more than.
No, it's a daily conversation.
Yeah.
The principals at the elementary level have actually worked with bus drivers this year to try to improve the reporting process, because sometimes what happens is the drivers are busy, they're moving from run to run, an issue happens, and the principal may not know about it.
Yeah.
And so the principal want to get on it, they want to take care of it, and sometimes they just don't hear about it quickly enough to take care of it. So we've been trying to improve that process and have the principals work hard with them. There's been a couple meetings with that. So it is an ongoing piece that we are continuously trying to get better at and improve. There's no magic bullet to it, but yes, kids can be removed from the bus.
Yeah.
Yes, they are removed from the bus. Yes, things get reported. We watch video all the time to sort of make sure that parents are aware and that we can do appropriate discipline. But obviously it can get better. It needs to get better.
Right.
Yep.
Anyone else on transportation? You have more? Or is that your
For
report?
my report?
Yes.
Oh, I got more.
Yeah, I figured. I thought so. So anyone else with transportation questions? Okay.
There's just one other transportation thing, and this was a question that you had asked me, Joe, so I just figured I'd share it with everybody. Where we have made improvements is our fleet management and keeping track of the needs that we need to make in terms of making sure that buses are properly maintained, that we have the records of when they need to be maintained. That has been an ongoing issue in the past where we didn't have those records and weren't following schedules. So that is one thing that Pam has been doing. That has been her primary position. So we have that. We can actually look it up. We can see every single vehicle in our fleet, when it's due for inspection, when it's due for various work. Jim just went and had a conversation with the mechanic who does the work for us on their buses at Murray's, what's his name, Jesse, I think, to check in, to see, all right, we've made changes, how are you seeing this from your end? And they had that conversation, and Jim got some positive feedback, and in planning for the annual state inspection, feel like they're in a good place for that. So that is an area in which, in spite of all of this, we do know that we're making progress. For what that's worth, I know it doesn't help in terms of families and transportation. I will also say that I think what we're trying to do above all else is make sure we're providing it on a regular basis. I wonder where we'll get a tipping point for we're providing it every day, but is it too long a ride? Is it just too long? Is it just, that is something, last spring we were just canceling routes. We never consolidated. When we lost a driver, we weren't consolidating. We're able to do that now. We're using the sophomore much more effectively, but I don't know how much you can consolidate before it's not really, a manageable route.
We'll be able to have a conversation about this in PTV at some point.
Yeah, we knew tonight was going to be all the EEI, so we can plan for that for the next meeting. Do you want to do that on the 16th, Peter? Or do you want to
Will
stick with
depend
that?
upon the amount of time that you think EEI is going to require on the 16th.
So
15th.
The 15th.
15,
I
sorry.
blocked a 2-hour window. We could give EEI an hour and 15 minutes or something like that, and then.
It's fine for me. I
Okay.
have no.
All right. we'll make sure we're prepared for that. Okay, just a couple other things. I had updated the board a while ago about a potential new law that increased the minimum wage for ed techs and that sort of mandated a minimum wage for ed techs and support staff. So that a version of that bill passed. The original bill had 150% of the minimum wage for ed techs and 125% minimum wage for all their support staff. The bill passed with 125% for ed techs and 115% for support staff. With the new contract that that the association passed today or yesterday for AFSCME that we'll look at in our executive session, and looking out, Gabby was able to do the numbers, and we're in pretty good shape. That's not, the 150, 125 is going to make us nervous, but the 125, 115 we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So, so that was good news because that was potentially going to be a budget issue. I want to say thanks to Joe, Crystal, and Anthony for attending the Tri-Town Select Board meeting with me last night. Had a chance to present the budget, shared information. A lot of conversation about what the superintendent agreement students, the students who come to us on superintendent agreements, and whether or not we are losing money on that or what that may be. So, and my understanding is when I left, there was more conversation about it, and maybe potentially some information that may not have been accurate. So spend some time today sort of calculating just to make sure, and I'll share this with the select board, obviously, to make sure they're aware. But we have 119 students who are superintendent agreements into the district, and when we put them through the funding formula, they bring in $1,026,000. So every time we have a student in our district, we get money. So having those students, there is a line in which it's too many, and what I talked about last night, and I think we've talked about here, is in Turner. That prior to Kim and I starting in this, in Kim at Turner Primary and myself here, Turner was a little bit of a wide open door. Anybody who wanted a superintendent's agreement could get one, and it resulted in some overcrowding. Beginning last year, the first year Kim and I were here, it was already a done deal. We really couldn't do much about it. But beginning last year, we really started to clamp down more. So we're not denying them all, but we are being much more mindful about that to make sure that we're not sort of burdening that school. So there are some larger numbers there from prior to, but we've stopped that. So it's $1 million. So I just want to make sure that I share that information, and then I will share it with the select board. I've started budget presentations with various PTCs to share with them the budget. I was at Turner Elementary and Primary and Leeds last week or 2 weeks ago. I'm going to be in Green next week, and then I've started to present to some staff. I may not get to all the staff meetings before the budget meeting, but that's my goal. On the consent agenda, there's a bunch of job descriptions. The database manager, food service, those are 10 years old. Hopefully you noticed that. They were way out of date, so they needed to be updated. The school nurse, you guys approved and updated in January, but there was a key responsibility that was missing from that we wanted to make sure that we had in place. So that it's just that one responsibility has been added. Nothing else has changed on that. And then I gave you a heads up, the probationary teacher nominations. We have a really nice mix of brand new beginning teachers, experienced teachers. The principals do a lot of work in the supervision process, using the supervision process that we approved last year that got updated. And it's a good crop of new teachers who bring good energy to school and to our kids. So that's what we got.
Okay. Sounds good. So the probation, yeah. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. I know it's because of like the budget season, but will the administrators be coming back with their reports?
May. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So we're going to act on reappointing teachers, but do we need to have a list of that, or is that list included?
You have
We
the list in your, yeah, you
Okay.
have. So I'll just say, just as a reminder, so state law requires a 2-year probationary period for all public school teachers. So they get hired, they're in year 1 probation, we do full supervision evaluation process with them. They get nominated to a 2nd year of probationary if we determine that they're meeting our criteria for what we consider to be good teaching. They go into a 2nd year probationary. At the end of that probationary 2nd year, we decide through that process if we want them to continue. Then they move to a continuing contract, And a continuing contract teacher gets a full evaluation every 3 years. And again, all of that is determined, that is all state law. So that process is how that works.
Okay. So hopefully everyone can see that list in there. Note it is stamped confidential. And it will be part of our consent agenda. Is there anyone else with questions for the superintendent? Seeing none. So the consent agenda, remember these items are going to be acted upon collectively unless someone wants to make a motion to act on one individually. The consent agenda tonight includes item 8.1, which is review and adoption of superintendent recommended job descriptions. That is database manager, food service specialist, food service assistant, school nurse pre-K through 6, and school nurse 7 through 12. There's also consideration and approval of the Finance Committee recommendation for the wood chip bids, as well as item 8.3, which is to act on the reappointment of the following for the 24-25 school year: 8.3.1, which is probationary contract teachers second year, and 8.3.2, which is first continuing contract teachers for the third year. Again, that list is in your packet. We have a motion for the consent agenda. Agreed. Second by Crystal. Is there?
That was the second.
That was the second. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Actually, I can't say it because it's confidential, so I'll just tell Carrie.
Okay.
There's a name error.
Okay.
Oh, there's a married name that didn't get changed.
Okay.
Doesn't change anything.
It doesn't
It's the
change
same
the
person,
person. Just, it's hard to
All
say.
right. Did anyone want to make a motion to remove one of those items from the consent agenda? Okay. So there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded to approve the consent agenda as written. All those in favor? Appears to be unanimous. Peter is not here, so everyone minus Peter.
So we just mark them as
It
absent.
says by those present.
By those
By those
present.
present. Okay,
perfect.
very good.
Covers us.
So we'll move on. Now, no old business. We have new business, item 10.1, which is a presentation on the fiscal year 25 budget development process and the future budget process, and that will be by our superintendent.
So I don't really have a presentation. I think what I want to do, we've now done, this is now our second year, my second year with all of you in terms of how this process has worked, the schedule, sort of, the manner in which we're doing it. So for those of you who are new to us, you can just listen to everybody and hope that whatever they come up with will either keep the process or improve it. I'm not sure I have an opinion on what, but it seemed like a good time to sort of just talk about it and hear what people's thoughts or opinions on it, whether or not we want to explore something different or keep with it, or any improvements that we can make.
And I'll say the genesis of some of this was me asking Carrie earlier on why we went from like Article 1, 2, 3 and then skipped to like 17, 18, 19, and then we kind of came back to, and like, why were we just doing it in numerical order? I imagine...
I said I copied what was done when I got here.
Right, because that's what had been happening apparently before Carrie's arrival, and it seems, if you read between the lines, some logic about the amount of time it takes to go through those articles and organizing them into certain meetings, but really we just felt it would be a good idea to bring it forward to you and see what you guys thought about how we've been doing that, the order, should we make changes. Really, it's about kind of putting this on the floor for discussion.
This isn't about the order, however. I think after doing this for 2 years now, it usually says like on the agenda, or like the estimated time is going to be like from 6 to 7, we're going to do a budget meeting and then a full meeting after that. Last year it wasn't so bad, but this year I feel like sometimes it would be 8:30 by the time we would finish doing the budget review, and then we would still have a full board meeting afterwards. So we're extending our time to like 11 p.m. sometimes. And so I'm just thinking in terms of like those of us that get up at 3 a.m. to work, like when it's budget season, either starting earlier or finding a way to condense the process. I don't know what it would entail, like a board workshop beforehand or what, but I was exhausted by the process. And maybe,
100%.
you know, at the same time this year we had negotiations going, so that was exhausting too. But I'm open to suggestions on how to improve that, but they were late nights.
Yeah, I mean, I agree it was a grind, and we had, that one night that was 11, I think we might have started with subcommittee meetings before that as
Yeah.
well. So there was a couple long ones there.
I'll just echo that too, and just keeping in mind that we have public that come, and I think putting that onto an agenda so that they also see it, that if they don't want to be there for the budget, but they want to be there for the regular board meeting, they sort of have an estimated time, as to like, come at 7 for the regular board meeting, come from 6 to 7 for the budget meeting, and then we're sort of respectful of everybody's time. And they sort of know like at 7 they can leave if they were just there for budget, and kind of just an idea of what to look forward to for that night would be helpful knowledge for everyone.
I also found that I was really bad at predicting those times.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember
Seriously.
our one of the executive sessions we had that was scheduled for 7:30, and we were able to get through almost everything before that. And
Yes.
I had guessed that we were only going to get halfway through that.
That's
So
okay.
it's hard to
Yeah.
predict that, I think. But yes, Anthony.
The first session was a long time ago at this point, and so it's sort of faded into the big mush of it was all the budget. But am I remembering correctly that at the first session, we had sort of the reports from all of our administrators, and it was sort of one after another. So by the time we sort of came around to that warrant article, that was in the long ago. And it might just be better to have that just like, I mean, it's great to have that in up front and maybe as a written thing. And, you know, we could just sort of read it and absorb it a little bit, but then as the refresher, because we kind of had to do a refresher anyway, that could save maybe a little
So
bit of time.
those are executive summaries.
Yeah.
And so I'll just say, like, the district I came from, they did a one day, like the board, there was a subcommittee, but they just took a day and just did it all day long, one day. So we don't have to do it the way that we're doing it. So we could think about, and I don't think we have to have, if we want to change having a meeting after every one, we actually have a board policy that says we have to have 21 meetings.
Right.
And if we don't have a meeting after every one of those, we don't have 21 meetings. So, and I don't know why we have a board meeting after every one of those, because that's like a lot of board meetings in March. So it could be that we re-examine and do two long nights of just budget, no board meeting, and then board meetings just regular. So I think all of those, I think, are possibilities if we just don't think about how we're doing it right now. But I think starting with the overview, here's your budget book, here's the overview, and then we stop and then not do those executive summaries, I think is a good start to that. Because I agree with you, it became repetitive. Yeah.
And I don't know if we're necessarily going to decide it tonight, but I think getting some feedback and coming back with a plan, I think is really the goal. I don't know, you've been part of probably more of these than anyone, Peter. What do you think of our current process?
It hasn't changed a lot, to be honest with you. It's pretty consistent. And we've always had the executive, but I agree with Anthony. After about the second executive summary, they start blending together. And by the time you hear all of the executive summaries that night, you're like, who said what?
Yeah.
And then you start going into that night we don't do any of it, but then, and I realized they came back. So realistically, that's probably a half an hour we can shave off of. But no, we've always had them. We did have a couple years, and there was a major kickback on a much more limited budget review. You know, there was years that we didn't have the line item. That didn't go over well.
Yeah.
And so no, I understand it's usually the big guys we try to talk about first, and that's why it's out of order. But.
Yeah. Well, is there interest in trying to put less but longer sessions together? Perhaps.
See, that's the one thing that's different from. It was very common for us to go to 11. So
Yeah.
it was not. You guys talk. It's just like you're used to. It's like the 10. Almost every meeting I went to, somebody had to make the motion to extend past 10, and that was very common. But I have no problem with it being shorter as I get older, that's much better. But that's not uncommon. Oh, and the other thing, we never had, the other thing that was different though, because we try to force everything on one night now. Subcommittees sometimes met on board nights, but not always. A lot of the subcommittee meetings were at different times, different, not forced in that time frame. At some point that happened, and there's pros and cons of it, but it makes that night an hour or so less, and you know, like and it also, one of the things is some of the subcommittees might feel like they're, and I think Jane was talking about it, restricted in that hour time frame. Because I remember curriculum policy meeting they used to have meet for a couple hours sometimes, and so forth. So anyways, that's just another thing that subcommittees is adding to that whole length of a meeting time frame.
So the subcommittee thing, when I came on board, the only subcommittee that had been meeting regularly was curriculum policy. There was not a regular schedule for the other ones.
That had to be a COVID thing then. Because prior,
I think there's some other issues there, but
yeah. when I left,
about that.
PTB was meeting.
But it was one of the first things that I was like, Betsy, of course they have to meet like all the time. There was a lot. There was a lot going on.
We had like 4 or 5 subcommittees.
There was a lot going on.
But you're right. When I first came on, curriculum and policy was meeting on Tuesdays. Like it wasn't a board night.
Yeah. Right.
But I think then it's a balance of like how many nights, and sort of just how do we manage that so people can still do everything they're doing and not have it completely take over their personal lives. So, and I think for us as staff to like how many nights, if we'd had separate nights for committee meetings, when would we have been able to do negotiations? Like there's only so much time. So I think that was some of one was to have them done regularly so that they were doing their responsibilities, and then how does it be manageable?
And we're doing them every week. So it's a meeting every week. I mean, we could potentially try to do longer,
Oh yeah, realistically,
workshops.
PTB met, but we met probably not, sometimes we'd meet every month, sometimes we'd skip a month. It depends upon what the workload was. If there was a lot of stuff going on, we'd meet sometimes 2 or 3 times, boom, boom, boom. And so yeah.
An advantage of lumping them together and having fewer meetings is that if you push them farther off, there's more time for the actual numbers to get in place, and less, let's talk about this item again, maybe a third time. So I mean, I just wanted to recognize that there could be a real efficiency in saying, we're going to do a budget workshop in one day and just do it. Yeah. It's going to hurt. But
well, it hurts now, but it's it's still good. But I think there are variations that happen between. I mean, you get updates every time. Things happen that we don't anticipate. The numbers change. So it's even if we did all those presentations in one night, we'd still be coming back, but it might not be quite as extensive a review coming back and changing and updating. So
because realistically, the biggest one is insurance.
There's only that in terms of a timeline.
Yeah.
We can't do any finalizing until that happens. Yeah, correct. Yep. And that's always going to be at the end of March. Beginning of April.
I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in for what
Yeah.
it's worth. I love the idea of having like 2 longer meetings, and if people don't feel comfortable, or you even making a decision right now, is it something that we could do at our workshop, our organizational workshop in August?
Great idea.
Yeah, we haven't set that yet, but that's a great idea.
So that we can think.
Yep.
I don't know if there's any real rush on this at all, really.
No.
Next.
No,
I mean,
but
let's
just
get started now.
fresh in people's heads. Well, it's fresh in people's minds.
Well, I don't know if you remember the last meeting, this was on the agenda at 11 o'clock, and we pushed it to today, so just better do this
We
now.
could have had an educated discussion.
Oh, yeah, it would have been good.
Conversation.
I actually don't mind it. I think it was better than, the process is actually a lot better than it was in the past, part of it. So like, I feel like it's definitely efficient. So we haven't really had many nights at 11 o'clock compared to what we did before. So this was, I don't know, I don't think it's
You're one of the few
horrible.
people with a foot in the old prior to.
Yeah.
What does admin feel?
I will say having a board meeting after every single one is is a lot. Because getting that like agenda and like setting an agenda every Monday for the next, like it is an organizational like.
We're setting an agenda that is skipping a meeting.
Yeah.
And so it
Before
would
we
really
even
get
had the
confusing.
meeting. So you're
Yeah.
setting agenda for, on a Monday for the next Thursday, when you haven't even had this Thursday. So
Yeah.
it's really, that piece of it is like, is pretty challenging and overwhelming. And I think we started to see some mistakes in like board packets and stuff, like, which is just gonna happen. Like, it's just, seemed like a lot to me. So I think that piece of it, if we could resolve that, that would make a huge difference.
So I realize we would make final decisions later in the year and so forth, but it sounds to me you might be leaning towards like 2 or 3 budget meetings, and then some that are solely budget evenings, so like 3 hours of budgeting.
These sound like popular tonight. Yeah. I don't, Gabby, did you have anything you want to throw in here? I mean,
I would love to condense them and make them longer,
Yeah.
and then have an opportunity to just maybe an agenda item that says, here are the updates this time.
Yeah.
Here are the updated sheets. Here are the highlights. Any
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah.
It's a lot to put it all together, and I can do it any way anybody wants, but I think that condensing it and getting it all out there, and then taking some brief updates, and then a final number at the end, I think that sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, on to 10.2, which is consideration and approval of the Finance Committee recommendation for a contract for electricity rates. This was not in our consent agenda. Was this a unanimous?
No, actually, we haven't had an opportunity to discuss it.
Ah.
So last time, there was a unanimous vote. The company that was chosen was Neighborhood Energy. They had given us one rate that was a decent amount lower than the other ones. I actually emailed them that night. I emailed everybody that night, told the winning bid. He didn't get back to me until, I want to say, like 12 o'clock that afternoon, the next afternoon, and he said that, well, actually the rate went up 0.04 cents, which then made it higher than the competing bid. So I put a stop to it. Carrie sent a notification out to you guys just to let you know that we were going to pull the numbers again. I felt it was a bit of a bait and switch personally, and I was very uncomfortable with that. And he was really pushing for us to meet sooner and lock in rates, and I said, no, the next budget board meeting is the 25th. That is when we're bringing it again. So we got multiple rates from multiple companies. We previously had, before this current year, MPO, which is Constellation Energy. The rate that they gave us this time is 9.42 cents per kilowatt hour. It is slightly higher than the company that gave us the lowest rate last time. Their rate is 9.371 cents per kilowatt hour. What that works out to over the course of the entire year is $1,000. The other company is much higher, so I'm not even going to discuss those. But when I went back to MPO and Neighborhood Energy and Neighborhood gave me the higher rate, I said to MPO, when are you going to honor this rate through? And they said, oh, if you had told us, we would have honored it for the next morning. That is not an issue. And we would have pulled the rates again. If it had gone down, we would have given you that. If it had gone up, we would have honored that rate because you needed that night. This guy did not do that. It was a brand new company that we were looking at. I am not comfortable with that, and I would prefer to go with MPO.
Okay.
But I will take recommendation.
Yeah, before we go too much further, is there a motion to consider and approve the Finance Committee recommendation for a contract for electricity rates?
There isn't a recommendation.
There wasn't a recommendation.
It wasn't a recommendation.
We're doing it now.
Yeah.
Right. So, we're not supposed to have discussion unless there's a motion.
So
on the
admin
floor.
recommended, so you're recommended NPO
I am
at that
recommending
rate.
NPO.
So
So
admin
moved.
recommended.
Okay. So moved by Peter, is there a second?
Oh,
Okay,
I got
Crystal.
Swapped out.
I know, that was easy.
Sorry.
Peter got it, and who was the second? Crystal? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
What was last year's rate?
This current rate?
What are we paying now?
9.803 cents per kilowatt hour. So both rates are both lower. MPO would work out to $7,800 less than what we're paying right now if we use the exact same number of kilowatt hours. And Atlas would be, Neighborhood Energy would be $8,800 less than we pay right now.
What's the rate for NPO?
9.42 cents per kilowatt hour.
Go ahead.
And to clarify the motion, I guess if I'm made the motion for the administrative recommendation, it would be go with the
MPO.
NPO. So I guess just to clarify what that motion was.
Yeah. Anyone have any more questions on this? Yeah, go ahead.
There is still an opportunity for the rate to change a little bit. I can't guarantee it, but I do feel that MPO is more likely to honor this. We've had a relationship with them in the past. They're good to work with. That's all that I know.
Okay.
And it's still just a one-year contract.
Yes, actually, all the rates for longer periods are more expensive than the 1 year. Everyone is recommending to lock in a longer term. I do have those rates as well if you want to hear them, but I don't think that the finance committee was interested in that.
Is that true? The finance committee was not interested in a longer contract? That's true. Who's on our finance committee? Crystal?
Ashley is
Ashley
new and
and Kyle.
It was Peter Pryor.
And Peter Pryor, yeah. Okay. Anyone have anything else? All right, then all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, item 10.11, which is consideration of the letter. Where is it here? Consideration, I'd say, an approval for signature of the letter drafted by Jamie Johnson that will appreciate our teachers, which is the week of May 6th.
Thank you, that's a good number, I didn't know that. Makes sense.
Is there a motion on the floor for that? Bree, seconded by Crystal. Any discussion around the letter? I have to say, there were a handful of folks that reached out in one way or another to want to do something here on for Teacher Appreciation Week, and I think this is basically what we've done in the past: is put a letter like this together and sign it. I wish we could have had it a little sooner so we all could have read it, but ultimately, I think Jamie put a good letter together here, and it would be nice to be able to sign this and issue this to our teachers.
I just want to say, if I missed any Oxford commas, Anthony, I'm okay with you editing.
Heart Jamie.
The whole time I was writing it, I was like, oh gosh.
The
let
teachers
me edit the
appreciate it
commas.
if they can pick it apart, okay?
Yeah.
Give them a chuckle.
I would love it
Add
if
some
you did.
misspelled words on purpose, just for the fun of it.
I should have.
Yeah, we have an English teacher on it at the table.
We do,
too, so.
and I am okay with that.
Anyone have any thoughts on this? Yes, Anthony.
I think it's a very well worded letter. The sentiments are basically the same as the letter that I drafted and submitted. I'm quite happy with this.
Great.
I haven't really scrutinized the Oxford commas, but I
There's
don't
time.
think there are.
I dated it May 6th so that you would have time.
Yeah, then we'd have to run around and get signatures, so it'd be awesome if you could scrutinize, well, no, then I'd
I
have to
could put
print
a
it.
few in there just for fun.
Anyone? Thoughts on the letter? Okay. All those in favor? It's unanimous. So we will sign this probably in a few minutes here, but we're going to start here going into a series of executive sessions. We're going to start with 10.3, and that is a request for an executive session to discuss the Tri-Town Education Association TTEA negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D. Is there a motion? Anthony, seconded by Kyle. All those in favor? It's unanimous.
We need to leave this.
I would say we.
For like the confidential.
Yes, we will
Yeah,
bring them with you to executive
yeah.
session, and we'll collect them there, and that was unanimous, so we are in executive session in the other
And
room.
we are done.
We're gonna go-
Are we done?